moving on to item 4, communications. All the communications received by the board are in front of you. Moving to our public comment section. So for our public comment section, this is members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration of that item. And the government code, I'm not going to read that. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when the specific item is called for by the board president. We have a process to comment in person, and I'll read this entire thing here. To comment in person, fill out a request to be heard card and give it to the board clerk. Your name will be called during the public comment agenda item or during the specified agenda item. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. To submit a comment online via Assembly Gamut meetings, enter your name and email address. The board assistant will provide your comment to the board. To submit a comment on YouTube, type your comment in the live chat. The superintendent will share your comment with the board as appropriate. Okay, so are there any, does anyone wish to communicate with the board in person? Okay. Then online? Okay. Then moving on to item 4B, reports. Our first report is from the Robla Education Foundation with Mr. John Ribbon.
And if you don't mind, I'll just do it from back here since everybody can hear me. And anyways, I'm going to try to set the tone for tonight for presentations and report and keep it short. We've received several funding requests since the last time I was before the board. We had a $225 request from Miss Justine Miller of Taylor Street. They're looking to purchase some tap shoes and ballet shoes for 10 students. She's going to start up an after-school program. And we, as everybody knows, the foundation supports the arts, and therefore that was approved. Bell Avenue came to me, the sixth grade class from Bell Avenue came to me and said, hey, can you help us out with our trip to Mendocino, which we gladly did with a grant of $1,000. We acted as an intermediary when we were collecting funds. The district was collecting funds for the Boyd family to help them with their costs. We had $310 in grants come through. So when it came time to write the check to the family, we went ahead and rounded it up to $500 so to make that presentation to them. Also had some requests from a third grade class at Robla School. They are going to do the Mado Culture program that's over at FER Conservation Center later in the year. They're going to do that in May. It's 2 different days and 2 different classes. That worked out to $307.50 per grant. And we're looking at once this gets out to other teachers and so forth, we expect that we'll get more requests for funding. Currently, we're doing real well because we had the 2-3 years now that we haven't been able to do any grants because of no assemblies and programs. So I still have 19,000 sitting in the bank that is looking for a chance to get out there and help the different classrooms out with different projects. And that is, we're also going to we have one more that we're going to be funding in the future once we get some dates for it. Ms. Gagnon over at the Taylor Street School got a hold of a blues group, Mick Martin and the Blues Rockers. They did a presentation the other day at Taylor Street School, which was attended by the 5th and 6th grade classes over there. Real good thing. I've already submitted the information to both Ruben and to Daryl Roberts were the thoughts that maybe they'll be able to use them in February at the Parent Empowerment Dinner. And if that comes about, the foundation will be also be making matching grants for that program. And that is all for now. Questions? Comments?
A lot of thank yous.
Yes.
You're working hard. Awesome job.
Thank you very much. Okay, Robla Teachers Association.
I am going to come out and talk to you guys. I haven't seen you guys in a long time. I want to welcome all of you. Good evening. Welcome to the audience. I know most of you. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Leah Boylan. I'm the president of the Robla Teachers Association. I'm here tonight because, well, there's a lot of positive things that are going on in the Robla School District. The district and Robla Teachers Association have always prided themselves in collaborating and working together to resolve issues. However, there is one issue that we have not been able to resolve, and I want to bring that to you tonight for your consideration. I want to give you a little bit of history. This is about breakfast in the classroom. Before COVID, if you weren't here, you didn't go to the sites, didn't see what it looked like. The gates would open about 20 to 25 minutes before the bell rang. The students would go into the cafeteria where they were served a hot breakfast. They could sit, socialize with their friends, and then they were released to go outside and play. When the bell rang, they would go into their classrooms and instruction would immediately begin. When COVID came around and the mandates, January of 2021, the CDC mandated that students no longer could congregate or in high density in the cafeteria, which meant no assemblies and no breakfast in the cafeteria. Lunches are on a rotational basis, so there's only 2 grade levels in there at one time. But breakfast, they're all in there at the same time. So the district and RTA did write an MOU to allow breakfast served in the classroom during this time. The gates open 15 minutes before the bell rings. The students stand outside waiting for the bell to ring. The bell rings and the teachers let the students in and the process begins. The students sit down. The teachers need to serve them breakfast. They need to let them eat their breakfast. They need to clean up, clean the trash, clean the tables. And then after all that is done, everything is passed out. The food comes in prepackaged meals. So sometimes they have to help open all the milks, the meals that are prepackaged. Teachers clean up, students clean up, trash is put in a place, and everything is placed outside. Some of the trash is left inside the classroom because the bags that are given to us are not large enough to fit all the trash in. Before I begin on what the problem is, we all want to know what the ideal learning environment is, right? We want the best for our students here at the Robla School District. I've been here for 24 years. So I have an understanding of what this looks like, and all of these people here do too. The ideal learning environment is one that we have a clean and safe environment where learning takes place throughout the whole day. In this ideal environment, no minutes are wasted because teachers and all the specialists need every single instructional minute to help enrich our students' lives and to make sure that they are providing targeted instruction and rich instruction to our students. However, that's not what's happening. This is the current situation that we find ourselves in. The gates now open 15 minutes before the bell is ringing. The students come into the gate. The students must wait outside until the bell rings. Because the weather is turning cold, they huddle together, even going into the bathrooms and hanging out all together, waiting for that bell to ring, which causes problems, right? We have vandalism in our bathrooms. They have lost out on socialization while eating breakfast with their peers. They no longer get hot meals. They have bug infestations in many of our school sites and classrooms. We even have insect spraying on early out Thursdays to try to get rid of this problem that we had last year, and it's ongoing. We just had another spraying this Thursday at the out. It's surely not fun to open a kid's backpack and find a cockroach crawling outside the backpack because of food spills. The classrooms are left dirty. The carpet is full of spills of milk, juice, and food debris. The classrooms themselves do not get vacuumed except for once a week. So the students are learning all day in dirty classrooms with bug infestations. But most of all, the most important thing to take away is a loss of instructional minutes. Instructional time has been reduced on average about half an hour a day, which equals 2.5 hours a week. Some of our younger students, it's really 40 minutes that they're losing to complete the process of serving, eating, and cleaning up. We also have specialists, intervention teachers, English language specialist teachers, RSP teachers, social workers, school psychologists, who have to wait until that time, a half an hour or 40 minutes, to pull children who are the most critical children that need services but are not getting them because we are waiting for them to eat breakfast after the bell rings. Specialists are waiting a long time to pull these kids. That means there's one set of kids that is not getting critical services. Our students cannot afford to miss out any instructional time. We know this. Mr. Penman is going to be talking about our CAS scores right later to you. We don't have the luxury of giving up 30 minutes to eat breakfast in a classroom. Not now, not now. Our students cannot afford this. Because of the loss of learning, our teachers and our specialists need every minute to bring learning to the kids in a clean, safe classroom. Every minute counts. Classrooms are for learning. A cafeteria is for eating. They were built to eat. They have linoleum floors. They have food service workers. They have custodians. Classrooms are carpeted. They have teachers to teach. We have Ms. Jimenez, who is on our bargaining team here, to pass out to you petitions that have been signed by every teacher at all of our 5 sites, asking you to please put breakfast back in the classroom. We also have petitions signed by your parents to please put breakfast back in the classroom, in the cafeteria, put it back, put it where it belongs. Teachers are our frontline workers. They know best. They're in the classroom every single day. They help these children learn. They know what's best for the strategies of student learning. And if they are telling me and telling you and telling the audience that they can't waste 30 minutes to wait to have kids eat in their classroom, they need to eat before the bell, as they always have for decades, we need to listen to them. They are our teachers. They are our specialists in teaching children. We may have specialists in nutrition. That goes in the cafeteria. Teachers are specialists with their children teaching. I'm asking you, please, please reconsider putting breakfast back into the cafeteria. It's a very serious matter for our students, and I really hope you take this to heart. Thank you. Thank you, audience.
Thank you. GCP, Class Product Student Employee Association. Is there a representative? Okay. Superintendent?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll start by sharing that we had a professional learning day in the Robla School District on November 1st for all staff. On that day, teachers participated in training focused on the area of mathematics. I'd like to acknowledge here and thank the P3CC team who worked very hard to put this day together to help really focus on bringing consistent, high-quality math instruction to our school district. Specifically, I want to acknowledge today Shannon Cannon, Lindsay Hall, and Hallie Hester, 3 teachers who played key roles in conducting this training for our teachers, and they did a really superb job. Other departments on that day focused on the needs that they have, and that was unique to each department and whatever areas of focus that they needed to work on for the day. Everybody on that day, all employees at all levels participated in the beginning of our active shooter training. This initial piece was virtual, so everybody sat at a computer for 60 to 90 minutes to complete this training. The second phase of the training will be in person, and that will happen during our professional learning day in March. Parent conferences are coming. The first trimester of the school year ends on November 15th. This is the time when teachers report to parents on the progress of their child. They do that by sharing the report card, and in Robla we schedule parent-teacher conferences which take place officially on November 21st and 22nd, although we do know that many teachers get started before that time in order to complete all of the conferences that are necessary. I think it's also important to share with our community that we worked very hard in Robla on our professional learning for administrators. I was able to attend a convening on November 3rd and 4th, focused on coherence and bringing our programs into a stronger place with 15 other superintendents from around the state. That was on November 3rd and 4th. And then thank you to Mr. Penman, who made arrangements on November 7th for all of our principals, as well as himself and Janine Marcoux, our Director of Early Learning, to attend, to visit classrooms in the Monterey Peninsula School District to see this math instruction in action so that we could talk more about our role in supporting that work. And then just yesterday, we had a PLC with our administrators that was led by our consultant from Ed Partners, Kayer Shaw. And we talked even further about the math instruction and what role we can play in supporting that. So I just think it's really important to acknowledge that our teachers are learning and our administrators are also learning about the specific roles that they play in the work that we have moving our instruction forward. And with that, I'll just say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and that's my report.
Thank you. Okay, board member reports. We'll start with Trustee Hamilton starts. Do you have anything to report?
I do not have any.
Okay. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time?
Trustee Cardona?
Can we ask for investigation about the investigations or report about the breakfast in classrooms?
We can do that at the request at the end of the meeting.
And the parents will okay.
So, any report? Nothing. Trustee Lewis? Nothing to report. And I have nothing to report as well. So we will move on to presentations. With the first presentation being, sorry, my computer is, the first presentation being the completion of construction phase 2 for Bell Avenue. And that is with Mr. Castillo, our CBO.
This is just for information, and we wanna, the board communicated that construction of Bell Avenue has been completed. There's a couple items that we're still waiting for, like the windows, the late delivery, it takes a long time to make. So but the school is pretty much completed, the bond funds that the community approved, that's, the Bell Avenue has been, phase 2 has been completed. That's information on it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, the large report for tonight, the 2021-22 CASP results. And with that, we have Mr. Pittman.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Reyes, and audience. Tonight I'll be sharing the state testing of the Smarter Balance Assessment results for English Language Arts, Math, and Science. This is just one of the state tests that are given to our students. We also have other state tests, PE testing, and we have LPAC testing, the English Language Proficiency Assessment for EL students. Cindy Land will report on that at a later date. As you know, during the pandemic, these are the first scores in nearly 3 years that we have had from CASP, which stands for California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress.
Oh,
It'll get going, I guess. Mr. Lopez?
can you try again?
Yeah, looking good. So I will start off by showing you what they call the data claim levels. These are the areas of testing that we have on the CASP, ELA, Math, and Science. So as you can see in English Language Arts, we have reading, writing, listening, research and inquiry. In mathematics, we have concepts and procedures, problem solving and data analysis, and communicating reasoning. In the life sciences, in the science, we have life sciences, physical sciences, earth and space sciences. As we move forward in this presentation, I want everyone to pay close attention to these numbers a bit, because in some of the pie charts, you will see a distribution of these numbers. So what do these numbers mean? Number 4 is standard exceeded. Students have exceeded the standard for their grade level. Standard met is a 3. Students show mastery at their grade level. So basically a 3 and a 4, if you see that, and I named proficiency levels of 10%, 25%, I'm talking about how many students are at grade level or above, and that's a 3 and a 4. If they are below grade level, their standard nearly met is a 2. They may require further development to demonstrate the knowledge and skills needed for mastery. Standard not met is level 1, needs substantial improvement to demonstrate the knowledge and skills needed for mastery. You'll be seeing this a lot in the pie charts that I show you in the future slides. This is a CASP student score report that we sent home to the families, and we also send them to the school sites for the CUME files and the teachers. This student here, this example has a 2489. They are standard 2. They're right in the middle of level 2. So this is a possible student to target an intervention or small group instruction to move them to proficiency or mastery, which is level 3. CASP performance results.
Mr. Pittman, the slides are not available.
Sorry. Oh, thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Sure.
CASP performance results. The 2021-22 CASP results were publicly released on October 24th. These results were widely anticipated because questions about the disruption to the learning due to the pandemic was on everybody's mind, including ours. Before getting into the performance results, I want to preface things because of the disruption caused by the pandemic. This is not apples to apples. It's not even apples to oranges. We don't know what to call it. This is from 2019 to 2022. We didn't test for 2 years. The testing populations may have differed between 2019 and 22 due to enrollment and student tested or not tested. The length and content of the proportions of CASP tests changed between 2019 and 22. Generally, the CASP tests were abbreviated to about half of their length. Math and ELA achievement are just 2 facets of learning. During the pandemic, schools and districts had to adapt to the needs of their students in a myriad of ways that may not all have been directly related to the academic performance. As you know, during this time, a lot of our students and families, we were working with their needs and social emotional with the students and the needs of the families at home as well. In terms of content mastery, results from 2022 are comparable to the results of 2019. However, the disruptions caused by the pandemic, it may not be a good idea to interpret 2022 results as the same trajectory as 2019, which I will show you in future slides. Instead, we have been told by the state and the county, it may be a good idea to view the 2022 results as a baseline year for future years. So countywide and statewide CASP. Up through 2019, Sacramento County students have made gains in ELA year after year, up to from 45 to 47 to 49%, as you see in the blue charts there. In 2022, 45% of the students met or exceeded ELA standards. The county declined by 4%. As for the state in ELA, which is right above that, they also had an upward trajectory in 2019 from 49 to 50 to 51, and then they fell to 47%, which is a 4% decline in 2022. Up through 2019, Sacramento County students made gradual improvements in math as well, from 36 to 37 to 38%. In 2022, 32% of the students met or exceeded math standards. This is a 6% reduction. And for the state, they were going up in a trajectory as well, 37 to 38 to 39 to 40. And then in 2022, they declined to 33%, a 7% reduction. Most students groups decreased between 2 and 5% in points in ELA achievement across Sacramento County compared to 2019.
Real quick, so these are not just elementary students, these are students in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Things to mention is that there are more English learners that met or exceeded standards in 2022 than in 2019. There were no change for students with disabilities. For most student racial ethnic groups, saw declines between 2 and 4 percentage points in ELA achievement compared to 2019. American Indian and Alaskan Native students were the highest decline at 8 percentage points. As we go through these slides, the ones that are a little bit more robust in information, I'm just going to pause for a little bit for you to look at. Most student groups saw more pronounced decreases in the area of math achievement in ELA than in ELA achievement across Sacramento County. Declines range from 4 to 8 percentage points. Similarly, all student racial ethnic groups declined between 4 and 8 percentage points in math achievement between 2019 and 2022. So what about Robla? We saw what happened with the state and the county. They were going on a nice trajectory up until 2019, and Robla was doing the same. If you can take a look up in the chart, in ELA, we were going from 25% to 31%, 30% up to 35%, and in 2019, we hit 38%. In the area of math, we were also going up in the trajectory at 23%, 27%, tipped a little bit at 25%, went back up to 28%, and we ended up at 29% in 2019. As far as the science, we had 18% proficiency, and that was the first year that we had next generation standards, so we only had 1 year to compare it to. Now remember this, and I'm going to have it in the slides right up there in the corner, that this is just something for us to keep looking at as we start looking at the context of where we are. The slides will have that up in the upper right where we were in 2019 so that you can compare it to where we are now. We went down 11% in ELA, 10% in math, and 3% in science. As I stated earlier, since we did not test the last couple of years, the state and county considers this our new baseline. As for district comparisons in our area, I have Natomas Unified, Robla District, Sac City, and Twin Rivers. Board Member Deleuze, this is elementary schools comparison here. I did pull this data on my own. In ELA, which is green, Robla's has close to 3% to Twin Rivers, and as far as 14% from Natomas. In the area of math, which is blue, we are as close to 3% to Twin Rivers, and as far as 16% to Natomas. In science, which is orange, we're as close to 2% to Twin Rivers, and as far as 11% to Natomas. If you compare Robla to the state, we are 20% below in ELA, 14% below in math, and 14% in science. As we take a look at the overall grade levels in the district, you can see in ELA, which is blue, it is lower in the lower grades. Kids in third grade were in first and second grade during the pandemic, and fourth graders who tested, they were in second and third grade during the pandemic. ELA in the early grades is rich in reading and phonics, comprehension, and vocabulary. They missed a lot due to that, due to the pandemic, and scores revealed it a bit. And for the math, which is in the orange, it was the opposite. The upper grades went down tremendously. This could be due to the math, because the math becomes more complex and difficult for the children as it builds through the years of concepts and strategy development. And so they missed out a lot due to the screen time. The black percentages you see there above the other numbers are from 2019, so you can see how grade levels have shifted. As we look at our student group charts, we notice that the students who did not fare too well in ELA, which is green, were our students with disabilities, 11%, and our English learners at 16%. And the high end was white, Filipino, and Asian. Taking a look at math, which is blue, the lower end student groups were black at 9%, EL at 12%, and students with disabilities at 10%. Although they went up 2% from 2019. The highs were Asian, Filipino, and white. In science, which is orange, the low were black at 5%, EL at 9%, and students with disabilities at 0%, and the high end were Asian, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and white. When looking at the black percentages that are up there, up above, that's 2019. As you can definitely see, no student groups were safe from the learning loss of the pandemic. So we will now go through the school site data. I will give you a picture of how they are doing with their scores. So let's go back to the scores of 2019, 38%, 29%, and 18% and see where our students stand now. As I go through these slides, you will see a new occurrence with our level 2 and level 1 students. There are now lots more level 1 and 2 students that we have ever seen before. And remember, those were the students who need the most intervention and supports. Just to put it in perspective, it used to be around 25 and 35%. So keep that in mind as we move forward and look at the level 1s and 2s.
Once again, these are students who say third to sixth grade, so some of these are students who are in the first, second grade.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly right. As you look at Glenwood, you can see that the level 1 is very high. These are the students who need a substantial amount of support. Like I said, we have not seen those numbers. Nearly 53%, or the 53% are level 1 in ELA, and almost 60% are level 1 in mathematics.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Have the school sites reached out to the students' parents as well as the students to give them extra help with like tutors and stuff like that for those falling far below?
I couldn't answer if they're doing tutoring at the school sites. but I do know that they're doing a lot of interventions.
Okay, like the stuff with like IEPs and 504s.
Oh, yes, of course.
So they're all, the students who are
We work,
really struggling
we
are,
work for all the students with the MTSS process. And so if those students should be served in different ways, we go through that process and get them interventions if necessary, or
okay,
testing if necessary.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Science for Glenwood. Looking at Maine, 28% for proficiency in ELA and 18% in mathematics. Once again, look at the level 1s and 2s. They're quite high and we're not used to that. 10% in the area of science. For Robla School, they're at 25% proficiency in ELA and 9% proficiency in mathematics. And 5% proficiency in the area of science. For Taylor Street School in ELA, they're at 34% proficiency and 28% proficiency in the area of mathematics. They have GATE students at their schools. They have gifted and talented students from their schools and the district schools around us. Some of those students go to the GATE program with Mr. Krongeier and Mrs. Mertz. If you pull away the gifted and talented students, you'll see that up above where it says without GATE students, they're at 18% in ELA. And in math, without the GATE students, they're at 14%. In the area of science, they're at 26%. Without the GATE students, they're at 12%. As we look at the comparisons in ELA, which is green, we can see the schools are pretty close to each other in proficiency. Taylor is the high, but as you can see, if I pull the GATE, they are the low. In math, which is blue, Bell and Taylor are the highs, and Robla is the low at 9%. Looking at science, we see Bell and Taylor are the highs, and Robla the low at 5%. As you can see, Taylor has the black up top. That's the without the GATE. Here we have student groups per school. Starting at Bell Avenue, we see that the high end is whites and Hispanics, and the lower end are Black, Asian, and EL. At Glenwood, we see on the high end is Asian and Black, and lower end EL. At Main Avenue, you see the high end as white, Asian, and Hispanic, and the lower end Black students. Robla School, the high end is Black, Asian, and white, and the lower end is EL. And lastly, for Taylor, the higher end is white and Asian, and lower end is EL. Looking across the schools, we see something new with EL trending down at the lower end. This subgroup has fared well over the years with keeping up with the subgroups and sometimes being on the higher end. So that's something new to us as well. For the math subgroups, for Bell Avenue, the high end is white and Asian, and the lower end is Black. Glenwood School, high end is Asian and lower end is Black and EL. At Main Avenue, the higher end is white and Asian, and the lower end is Black. For Robla, the lower ends are white, Hispanic, and EL. So in math, looking across the schools, students who need the most supports are the Black and EL students in math. You will notice in this slide that a lot of student groups are not shown in science. I'll remind everyone that only 5th grade does science. So if there is not 10 students in the population in that group, then they are not provided data. So as you can see from this data, our lower ends are EL and our higher ends are white and Asian. So we have given the CASP information and a lot more formal assessment information to the sites and leaderships. So the question is, what occurs with this information? That's probably the most critical piece of all of this. Your data has to be analyzed. It has to be utilized in the correct way. And if it isn't, then it means nothing. So what are we doing with that info? Well, something that is new that we implemented this year was that we did data days on our PL calendar. I put September 1st, 29th, December 8th, March 23rd, and April 20th. These dates are embedded in our site Thursday PLC, Professional Learning Communities. Now that are 75 minutes to be used only for data purposes. We do it in the beginning of the year, trimester 1, trimester 2, and at the end of the year. But it only begins there. We also wanted to align, what we also wanted to align is how we have conversation that flows at the sites. So we align that too. We wanted to see how they were thinking about it, how they were looking at it, and what they were doing with the data. So we have to now follow a protocol that we got from our partners at SCOE to ensure that we have everyone having the same pertinent conversations. Here's an example of our data protocol that all the sites use. Here's what, so what, and now what. What do you see in the data? What did you learn? What are the trends? Are you looking at your grades, your student groups? What does the data suggest? What are the next steps instructionally? What strategies might be effective? What are the resources that are needed? That's the action plan, the most important piece of this. Then from here, we have conversations at cabinet where we further analyze and discuss things with our leadership and share information from school to school to school and talk about strategies and what they're doing with their students. This is one example of how the data is utilized for the SIPSAS, the school plan for student achievement, which the principals share with you every year. They take this data information and put it in their school site plans, and here's one example from Main Avenue. They noticed that they had a lot of students score level 2 who were in nearly the MET standard in grades K through 6 in math. Their goal was to target these specific students and use specific math standards to get 100% of their students to mastery in these targeted standards. What are their resources? The resources is use tier 1 supports using differentiated instruction. They will also use supports embedded in Envision Math and utilize strategies they discuss in their PLCs. One of the most important parts of this is monitoring the next steps. We don't put them in groups and forget about them. We have to monitor their progress. So we will collect data at 8 to 10 weeks and see how they're progressing through their target standards, and then they'll reassess their next steps from there. Just another example from Robla School, some of the data that they received. What they noticed is that the math and science was low for their students that were EL. Their goal was to increase proficiency in ELA from 14% to 30%, in math from 1% to 20%, and in science from 0 to 15%. What were their resources? These students would receive extra support during their win time, which is what I need time, and also during their tutoring. They also were, of course, going to monitor after every 6 weeks to make sure that their students are moving towards their goal. Here are some of our teachers during the Thursday PLCs that I told you that we embedded into our year, working together to figure out how they were going to intervene with their students. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you got a pretty good picture of where we are as a district with CAST and how we utilize our student data. I know this was probably a bit hard to see, but I want the board to know that there's a sense of urgency with all of us. We know that this is something that occurred during the pandemic, and we are committed, working together, leadership, teachers, the aides, classified. We're all working together for our students and families and moving forward. Are there any questions or comments?
Can we get updated when you get results back from, like, say, what was it? Robla says they're gonna collect data every 6 weeks after working with them. Can we get an update about how that's going and if they're seeing progress?
I'll take that, Mr. Penman, if I could.
You sure can.
Thank you. So every school has, we call this progress monitoring. So as they are developing their plan, how it will work, they have data that they can share. I think that we can talk about, I think would be a lot of data, and it's data that changes pretty consistently. And so I think maybe we could put our heads together. I think that we might be able to show you how it works, because they're, we'll use Robla as an example because that's where we kind of started. So Mr. Kath mentioned in his school plan that they're going to focus on this during win time. And win time is how many groups happening at one time, Mr. Kath?
So it's
If you took all
12 different groups. Some are doing phonics. You imagine everybody in this room getting specifically what they need. So we have 4 different exciting groups that are specifically in phonics. Instead of, so we have kindergartners going up, we have 3rd graders going down in the same group. And they get specifically what they need. So what we have coming up is our PLC, that we look at data where everybody brings their data and then we share, and it's time to move groups. So phonics, we have 4 scaffolded phonics groups and they're gonna need to move groups. Some people will stay in the group, but it's that that's what comes up. It's like, we're to that point where we need to look at it.
I think it's just really important for us to kind of, as a district and all the sites, instead of one school doing this and one school site doing something totally different, work together, because all students are struggling right now. And if something works really well at one site, it's probably gonna work really well at all the other ones too. So just having that data.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this, that may or may not be true, because every schools have different resources and talents within their staff. So every school kind of discusses what it is that they have and what it is that they're able to pull together based upon the data that they've got. I think really where the rubber hits the road here, and Mr. Penman already mentioned it, is in their school plans, right? So this cycle that kind of begins with this data, right? Because now the principals have their data, as well as all the other data that you saw today, and then all the other data that they have from our local assessments. And they say, okay, this is how our students are doing. What is our plan for our school specifically and what we think our students need, right? So as those school plan reports come, and they're starting in December, those updates are starting in December, Mrs. Lyon, is that correct? So starting in December, that's your chance to start listening for, okay, well, what is Robla doing about their kids, and what is their data telling them about how the thing that they're doing, how well it's working. And so that's where you can gather that data.
Okay.
One of the things I think, and you and I have talked about this, Ms. Devine, and that is that we've talked about visiting schools, and I think that maybe one of the great things to do, and we can arrange to do this, would be to arrange for board members to see what these interventions look like in action, because I think that's where you would see exactly how the schools all strategize about how that will work. So we can talk more about that and maybe make arrangements for that to happen.
I look forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Mr. Penman.
I think it's important to note that, first of all, this was not something that was unexpected. Having said that, it is devastating to see. I think it's important to note that this is not a reflection on our staff or on our kids. Quite frankly, is in my opinion, it's a reflection on policymakers. Because it wasn't the pandemic that shut down our schools, it was the decisions by our policymakers. And I'm not saying that I'm here to question that. What I am saying is that that's what we're looking at. There were some states, there were some counties, there were some private schools that did not close down, and as a result, don't see these same numbers. I've heard this learning loss described as generational. I mean, as something that is going to be multiple years if we can get them back to get our students back to where they need to be. A lot is going to be asked of each and every one of you and each and every one of us. We appreciate that. We know that we've already asked you all to do so much already. But we owe this to these kids. I'm sorry, to me, this is just devastating because you don't know. I mean, I honestly, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, we're being asked to get a whole lot better really, really fast. And
It's not gonna be overnight.
no, it is definitely not going to be overnight, but the challenge is with all academics. Next year is based on what they learn this year. And if they don't learn what they need to get this year, how are they going to be able to handle it next year? I don't know, it's very, I don't know. You know me, I'm rarely speechless, but
We do know that about you. You know, Mr. DeLuz, I would say this, I think you summarized it well, right? It's terrible to see, but it's not surprising. And I think one of the things that goes through my head is that what have we heard about how the pandemic impacted kids in schools, right? Who fared the worst? Kids who are living in poverty. Who does Robla serve? Who fared the worst? Kids who don't speak English, and for a year and a half, they stayed in an environment where nobody was speaking English. So they had very few opportunities to grow and practice their English during that time. And so that to me is a really important thing for us to know, because as Mr. Penman said, that's an area that Robla has always done well. REL kids have always performed above what was expected of them. And I think this is just a fine example of a circumstance that could not be overcome at the time. But I do agree with you that this is going to be a lot of work. And I know that the schools are already working very hard on this and will continue to do so. And I think that we can all look forward to the strategies that they're putting in place, that we are putting in place as a district to make sure that we are trying to catch them up, accelerate them.
I would say for me, there's two takeaways. One is I hope that our policymakers, our state policymakers going forward will consider unintended consequences when they take actions as drastic as this one, number one. The number two, the other is this is the new baseline. The goal is to improve from here and to try and improve as best we can, as fast as we can. And I have all the confidence in the world of the Robla family.
Well, I have a few comments as well. And I am speechless. I share that with everyone else here. I am not going to say that this is the fault of policymakers, and I'm not saying this to argue with other board members. So, where I am with this is, we had a pandemic. Our policymakers did what they thought was best to keep kids safe, to keep the public safe, and this is the result of that. I'm not going to say that that was a wrong decision or a right decision. That was a decision, and this is what came with it. So maybe the next pandemic will know how to do pandemics better, but this is where we are right now.
Don't even say that. Keep that out of your mouth.
So the main thing is I'm not going to say that this, and I don't know, I don't have data that says that the districts that shut down would get worse than districts that didn't, versus those who had other losses. I'm not going to go there. This is where we are. We need to respond to this, and that's where I am right now. And I think this gives us an opportunity to figure out how we can do things better. I mean, we see these trends. We know that African American students are not performing as well. we need to address that. That's where I am. And I'm glad to see that you are working on that. And I would like to see, more of that. I mean, we're seeing trends here. We're seeing that, African students get better in Robla and Linwood. Why? And I think that's a good thing. I think we can take and learn from that and see how we can do about it. So I think this really is an opportunity for us to learn how we can do what we need to do better. Okay, I'm not gonna, put it on policy or anything like that. We had a pandemic, we responded to that, we did what we could to keep our kids and our staff safe, and this is where we are right now. Other comments? Thank you, Mr. Penman.
I just want to say a thanks to Mr. Penman. This is a report I know he's been working very hard on, and it's just a ton of data that has to be put into some kind of form that allows us to organize it. Just thank you, Mr. Penman, for all the work that you put in to do that.
It drew me no pleasure.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Penman. And
Next year will be better.
It was painful for me too, trust me.
And as Trustee Deleuze said, thank you to our staff. We know we have a dedicated staff, our teaching staff, our entire staff. Everyone is dedicated to our kids. We know, yeah, so thank you very much for everything that everyone has done. Okay. Sorry, that was a tough one to. Okay, moving on to item 6, the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion. Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to action items, section 7. 7A. Motion to approve the revised policies, regulations, and/or exhibits.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Comment.
No, but happy to answer any questions.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. 7B. Ever-Driven Technologies LLC Contract Transportation Services. The motion to approve.
Move.
Second.
Motion is second.
Can you say a few words about this, Mr. Castillo?
Yes, of course. We are not proud to bring this to the board, but we have extended our options. We have 4 bus drivers that the parents will have for the staff. So this is an alternative. We still have to provide transportations and just to bring kids to schools as much as we can. So we're gonna use these services as we need it. That's how as we move forward, if we settle, we hire bus drivers, then we will reduce that. That's as needed. That's been said.
Any other questions? We'll move on to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7C, service contract, Project GLAD, professional development.
Move.
Second.
Motion second. Any comment?
Yeah, GLIDE is an instructional approach that many of our schools have been involved in. Mrs. Hall has been working on training her staff and GLAD for some years now. Mr. Caff at Robla and Dr. Gutierrez at Glenwood has also done some training. This is actually GLAD training in Spanish. So our DLI teachers now will be able to get this training specifically for them. And all of the instruction for them will be in Spanish. All the materials will be in Spanish. So this is a really important step forward for our DLI program.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7D, resolution 884 for the facilities grant and preschool Main Avenue ES.
Is there a motion? Before we entertain a motion, can these all be done in one motion?
They can be, yes.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve D, E, and F. Or I will move to approve D, E, and F.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, just allow me to explain that all three of these items, which are indeed connected to each other, are about the board giving the district authorization to submit our request to the state for funding, for facilities funding for preschool transition and kindergarten. You remember we applied for Bell Avenue last year, and this is us now taking the move to apply, because you can only apply for one school a year. And so Bell Avenue last year, and we're still waiting to hear, we're on the verge of getting some good news from the state, knock on wood, regarding our Bell Avenue application, and this is us submitting our application for Main Avenue.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously for D, E, and F. And for your memo, do we have members of motion? That was it. So we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item G. Contracts with special education agencies, schools, NTA and NPS.
Is there a move to approve?
Second.
And as the board aware, every once in a while, we need to bring to you the need to contract for services that are needed by specific students and their IEPs. And so this is just more in that vein, specific programs that are needed for students that are currently part of the Robla School District.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Before we move on, we'll check with Ramon, make sure you have all the, everything.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on to item 8, board member requests for future agenda items and reports. We will start with trustee Huntington Starks.
I don't have the answers.
Trustee O'Brien.
Can I get a thorough report of breakfast in the classroom from all the sites?
I'll just say this, yeah, of course, but it's a district-wide program. So my proposal would be that we gather some data together and some program information together. Ms. Lee, Claudia and Erica are both here from our Nutrition Services Department. I appreciate them being here tonight to be sure that they could hear the concerns directly from our teachers. And we anticipated this happening, and we will be glad to put together some very specific information for the board about our breakfast in the classroom program and have that for our next meeting.
Yes, given everything that we heard, I'm glad to hear you say that it'll be very thorough and comprehensive. Just quite important.
Actually, a few things. One, I'd like to see some sort of a salary comparison for bus drivers from neighboring districts, as well as compared to Robla. Secondly,
Can I just, sorry, can I interrupt on that? I think that's data we already have.
oh, perfect.
Is that correct? So can we just email it to you, or do you want us to wait till the next board meeting?
Actually, if you can share it at the next board meeting.
Okay. How about we do both?
There you go.
We'll email it to you, but we will also give you an opportunity to talk about it at the next board
There
meeting.
you go.
Let's do that.
There you go. I like it.
That's really, does that also have information on the
Salaries and benefits.
Do we have benefits information on that too?
Trying to remember what I did. Yes, I believe I have benefits comparison as well. In
Okay.
terms of the amount that the district contributes,
Yes.
not necessarily what the cost of the benefit plans are for each
Yeah.
district.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay.
The second is, and I know we're doing the second part of our ALICE training in March. And I don't know if this is something you can either information that you can get from the group that's doing the training, or if it's something we need to get externally, but I know I sound like a little bit of a broken record on this, but part of the training needs to be trauma first aid. And the fact that that's something that ought to be included in any sort of active shooter training, as well as, just as we have defibrillators, we should have trauma first aid kits. I'd like to see what something like that, at least for future years, might cost.
We could,
Or if we have someone that can provide those services.
we will look into that.
And the last thing, and it was something that I requested before, I want to follow up on it, was to see, I know that when we were doing our evaluation of our anti-racism training, it was mentioned that some staff, some instructors were utilizing a curriculum or items relating to anti-racism in their classrooms. I really wanted to see some examples of what our staff is using.
Okay, we'll pull that together as well.
Thank you.
And I don't have much, I requested for a little bit update on our vision services and possibly when we're going to start up again with Zoom screen. And that's it. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.